Are you too busy, too stressed out, unhealthy? Then this is the place for you. Welcome to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals, where we help you create wellness and balance with a holistic approach that will work for you, even with the busiest of schedules, so you can live the life you want. And now, here's your host, Diane Randall.
Hello and welcome to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals, the show that provides the best inner tools and strategies, helping you break free of habits and patterns keeping you stuck, even with the busiest schedule. As I told you earlier, this is the special treat. This is episode 2 of my Conversations with Cheryl Morgan Young. Today we're talking about what inspires us. I'm talking about my experiences as a single working mother. And we're also talking about planning for retirement. So tune in. Today's going to be a insightful conversation. I think over the years, Cheryl, you have really been such an inspiration to me. And what I want to talk about now is how if the audience has anyone in their life, or they have anyone or a handful of people that every time you're around a certain person, and you don't even have to do anything special, but every time you're around this person, you talk to that person, you observe that person, you just want to go home and make your life better. This person makes your life better, and I'm talking about you, Cheryl, just from knowing that person. Cheryl has inspired me my whole adult life, ever since I was in my 20s, and we worked together at McDonnell Douglas in St. Louis. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever shared this little story with you, but I remember I knew we were around the same age, and you were a leader in your early 20s. You were managing these big technology projects. I think you were even like a project leader at that time. And you looked like me. You know what I mean? I was so impressed with that. And at that time, I was a mom. I had a job, but, and I was still in school trying to get out. But you actually inspired me just by being present in your role at that time. I mean, wow. I could watch you and go, wow, I want to do something like that. You know what I mean? So I was thinking about that. I said that I really used to admire you in those meetings, when you led those meetings. And it just seemed like you seemed older, but you were really so young at the time.
I was the same age as you, Diane. Wait a minute.
No, I mean, you seem older because you had so many, you had so much more that you were offering at the time. I mean, you were a lead, you were like in management, and you were really young. That's what I mean.
I don't think you realize, Diane, how much we fed off each other, because I would look at you and see what you were going through and the struggle on the job, the struggle with your children, the struggle in your personal life, and balancing work and your health and your children with just yourself. And we would just share and talk, and I did not and could not have made the leap that you made. And I watched you make that leap from dependence upon family to total independence of family, to be able to recreate yourself. And that's exactly what you did. You were determined, you recreated, you reinvented yourself in another city. And you took the leap, you left, you knew that you had nobody else but you. And so the decisions that you made were very strong-willed decisions to change your life at that time. And it was still a very early age. I mean, we were just in our 20s at that time, Diane. So I watched you do that. I wouldn't have been in consulting had it not been for you. I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done SAP had it not been for you. And all of the experience that I got, even, the baseball field of consulting. You got people are first base, second, and third base.
But let me tell you what really inspired me. I remember and this was back in corporate America. I had no tools in how to handle situations at work. When it came to management, for example, I had a boss who I felt was a bully when I think about it now. And I just was very vulnerable at that place in my life. And I had no tools of standing up. You know, I just had grown up and been conditioned that a boss is a boss and he's in charge, right? So I remember having these conversations with you, and I would share with you things about what was going on. And I just remember our conversations we would have, and you never allowed me to come to you like a victim. You would just, like somebody who was helpless and didn't know what to do. You would give me words of wisdom and strength, even at that time. And I was able to go and in that moment and share, even with him, where I was at that moment and how I felt. I mean, I was able to go and really tell this guy what I needed, because at the time there weren't a lot of like sexual harassment laws and things in the workplace. And, we worked in a predominantly male environment. And I just didn't have any skills at that time in how to set boundaries or even protect myself, to be honest with you. I just didn't. And just having you there really helped me to learn and stand up for myself, because I just didn't know how. It was just a whole new experience in that environment. And I think about working there because it really set the tone for me to move on and move away and do things that I wanted to do because of that experience. I guess it was a lot of that experience.
Yeah. But those were tools that you learned, and it took you to a place in your career where it didn't matter where you were. You had different bases where people were in your life, and you knew exactly how to handle those situations based on what you figured those three categories were. You knew exactly where to place them. You knew exactly how to handle it. You knew how to get in and exit those situations and still come out on top ground.
Yeah, I mean, it took that part of my life to be very vulnerable, to have no skills, to not even know how I should respond to something, working as a young person in the corporate structure. I was just there doing what I needed to do. I had a boss, and, I was taught early on, the boss is in charge. But this experience was really something that I hadn't been exposed to, being harassed by a boss. And I just didn't know what to do about it. But from that experience, it did make me stronger. It did allow me to stand up for myself and learn how to set boundaries and speak my truth. Yeah. Yes, it really, really did.
Yeah, and some of us don't get that opportunity, and then others of us sit back and watch. And I watched. I didn't think I was really contributing that much to the situation, but to be there for you and try to encourage you, but I just never thought in 100,000 years that my friend would be ready for Chicago.
I don't think anybody knew. And when I told my family, they, nobody believed me, because guess what? I had a very small child and a preschooler. So
and an infant, yeah.
And where am I going?
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody, my family, my friends, really believed it until I had really left.
Yes. And, I mean, she really did leave, y'all. She left us with our mouths dropped. But, that was the best thing for you.
It was.
Because you literally blossomed overnight. And it felt like, to me, it was overnight.
It felt like
although I knew what was going on, it probably felt like an eternity for you.
Right.
But to me, you metamorphosed overnight. And all of the things that you have proceeded to do since you moved from St. Louis to Chicago, I sit back in utter amazement. And I admire you, Diane, for you taking that leap of faith and allowing God to put you in the best situation, and then just letting that which is in the universe become a part of your life, and you claim it and name it as yours, and you go after it, and then it becomes yours. That's just biblical teaching right there. That's all it is. You call those things that be not as though they are.
And I understand that now, but I can tell you at that time, I didn't realize that. I was really going on faith, and I've always been a very optimistic person, because a lot of times that's all I had,
I know what you're saying.
was my optimism, and that has really served me well. I can always see the good in something, and I always say, if it doesn't work out, here's the worst case scenario in my head. But over time, what I've learned to do is just trust. I set my intentions, and then I just trust that things will work out the way they should. And now that I'm older, that's what I go by. That's what I go by. If it's something I want and I don't have the answers, I get quiet. I just sit with it, because I know those answers are going to come. I know those answers will come. But years ago, I wouldn't have been able to articulate that, but I just knew nobody's going to save me. Nobody's going to come rescue me. Okay. So whatever I want in this life, I have to go and get it myself. I have to, if that's what I want. And I really, at that time, I just couldn't whine about how I have these 2 small children. Hey, I accept the fact that I had 2 small children, and guess what? I'm going to live my life anyway.
Yes.
In spite of, and that was the challenge, because a lot of single women, especially mothers, don't feel that they can have a life and raise children. Yes, you have to manage that, but it's possible. I don't know if I would have even been able to do the job that I did as a mom had I not been able to have just a little piece of life for myself. I've always said that, and I've always been honest about it, because there are a lot of single moms who they don't have a life, they don't feel they can go to school, they don't feel they can do any of the things that they want to do because they have children. Especially the challenging things like going back to college or getting a job where they may have to go out of town. And that's one of the things that I tell, especially younger women, that, you have to create the life that supports you. Yes, you have children. Yes, your children need you, but there's nothing wrong with you having a life. Some semblance of a life. It's important. It's necessary.
It absolutely is, because that also is a part of the balance that we need. And I just so happen to be married, but I think part of the balance in my life on my side is that my husband and I work together, and I know that given another space and time, even another universe, it could be just the opposite, where we couldn't work together, and I would be forced to create, a 4th leg, or maybe even a 5th leg. Most tables come with 4 legs, but I might have had to create a 5th leg on that table just to make that table balanced in my life. But the fact that Cliff and I do work together, and we all aspects, even. I didn't even mention the fact that we have a travel agency, right? But,
yeah, I do know.
But, even with that, we're able to do things together, which we struggle to not shop talk. So whereas most people, when they leave their job, they leave their work behind. But when we leave our job, we're still talking about the different aspects of what we got going on because it's always there. Mm-hmm. And so we struggle to not shop talk. So, for example, Diane, let me just share with you, we went out to dinner a couple of Sundays ago. I actually had him to go to church with me. We were, in the same worship service at the same time. I was asked to come and fill in for someone that wasn't going to be there for the balance of the service, and so I went as a substitute organist. And after that service, we went out to eat. And to make our conversation interesting, we decided to take on a business model. Okay, so it sounds like we're creating business shop talk, but really what we did to make the conversation interesting, the entire 90 minutes that we were there in the restaurant, we asked that server different questions about how that restaurant was run from a server's perspective. We talked about capacity. We talked about the number of people that they may service within a 90 period of time, that we counted the number of 90-minute segments there are in their working day, and we would consider their weekend as their busiest time. And we literally did a guesstimate. It wasn't even a true number, but it was just a guesstimate on what that restaurant generated every 90 minutes. And we took that and balanced it against the employees that they had, what their salaries would be, their tips would be, what their tax amounts would be, what the restaurant's taxes were. We guesstimated what the monthly expenses would be, broke it down to a daily rate, and we determined, based on a single day in that particular restaurant, with an average of about $60 to $80 per ticket. So a ticket may consist of two people, but per ticket it would be $60 to $80. We guessed that in a day's time, their gross receipts could be upwards of $45,000 to $50,000.
Did they pay you? Did they pay you for that analysis?
They should have. They should have. And that was gross receipts. And then when we subtracted out what we thought were salaries of the people on the floor, the managers, the staff, the marketing, all of that out, they still came out making between $20,000 to $25,000 per day.
Wow. That
they had maximum capacity of 300 to 350.
Wow. On
their busiest days. And I'm like, that's a model that I can learn to like. So even in that situation, and, that was not shop talk. That was just normal conversation. We sit down and look at a business model. We looked at another business model, a nail shop, a pizza parlor, apartment complex, a Title Max company.
Are you subliminally looking for a new business, Cheryl?
We're looking for retirement.
Oh.
And so retirement could be any one of those income streams.
Cheryl, I have a question. You have the type of businesses that you don't necessarily have to retire from. That's a wonderful thing. So what, in your mind, would retirement look like?
For me, retirement would look like where Cliff and I would be able to continue what we do with traveling, but also to have passive income. And that passive income might have to come from investment.
Okay.
And those investments would be any one of those four that I just named.
Okay.
We would be managers, owners, silent partners in that, and we would receive an income stream. For me, retirement would look like $10,000 a month.
Okay.
And no employees or something like that, or very few employees, where the businesses can take care of themselves with the employees under those particular businesses. But us personally, I might have maybe one or two personal assistants that I would consider personal employees that would take care of some of my scheduling and things like that to make sure I'm not overbooking myself, which I tend to do quite frequently. But also retirement for me would be to be able to take one or two foreign country trips a year, to be able to do some mission work, which we're doing mission work now, but we have to generate income in order to do it. Mm-hmm. But to be able to give back, it might be, in a foreign country where we're giving back, or it might be right here at home where we're giving back, opening up a school of technology, because we're both like really geeky that way. He's a VR geek, virtual reality geek, and I'm a technology geek, and we like toys.
Yeah.
So retirement would look like something like that. But we would always be creating, I think, because I don't want to just sit somewhere and rot. I'm going to always be doing something.
I can't imagine you not creating. I mean, that's just who you are. Cheryl, I want to thank you for being here and sharing your experiences and inspiring us with things we can do in our lives. In episode 3, we'll talk about relaxing the brain and exercising the body. So I don't want you to miss out. So if you're just now tuning in, don't forget to go back and listen to episode 1 of Conversations with Cheryl. This is episode 2. And next week, episode 3, where we'll be talking about relaxing the brain and exercising the body. I want to thank you for listening. This episode has been brought to you by Balanced Living for Busy Professionals podcast and Let's Talk with Cheryl's radio show on WESL Radio.
Thank you for listening to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals. This podcast is sponsored by DianeRandallConsults.com. If you like this show, the best way to support it is by leaving 5-star feedback on iTunes. And please, feel free to email your questions, comments, and suggestions to feedback@DianeRandallConsults.com. Until next week, namaste.